resumption of institutions of higher learning. We had two vice chancellors of universities who were with us, as well as the national president of NASU, that is Non-Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities, plus the commissioner for education from Borno State, who was also part of the conversation yesterday. Today, of course, as we said, we are focusing on secondary and primary schools and when they could resume and what the issues just might be. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I, Mr. Abusman, thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the NTA.
All right, as usual, in the course of the program, we have our complimentary segments, and these include newspaper review and business. In the meantime, let's join Comfort Amodu for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Comfort.
Very good morning to you and Nigerians as well. Now, Vice President Jemi Osinbajo has expressed the need for stakeholders in the oil industry to find and agree on cheaper means of producing oil while also ensuring a more competitive environment that meets the needs and purposes of the Nigerian nation, including the largest production volumes possible. This was at a virtual meeting on the Petroleum Industry Bill, PIB, with stakeholders in the industry under the auspices of the Oil Producers Trade Section in Nigeria, an independent petroleum producers group. The meeting was held at consultation ahead of the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill. And Vice President observed, he also noted that in line with the focus of the Buhari administration, there is need for stakeholders in the sector to agree on terms to create more competitive environment while maximizing opportunities in the oil and gas industry. The Vice President observed that the passage of the PIB should be seen as an opportunity to transform the industry by addressing lingering issues that have impeded development across different sectors that make up the industry. And the new PIB, which was presented to the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari in September last year, has already passed the second reading in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. The central aim of the bill is to foster sustainable development in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Meanwhile, schools' resumption earlier scheduled for January 18th is still in doubt, but the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says the date will only change if the Federal Ministry of Education gives a new date after ongoing consultations. PTF National Coordinator Dr. Sani Aliyu gave this clarification in an interview with NTA News on the issue.
The last meeting we had, the Honorable Minister of Education agreed to take up the issue of school opening back to his ministry, and this will be reviewed. And an announcement should follow. So for the moment, as far as we're concerned, we haven't received any announcement from the Federal Ministry of Education.
And the National Examination Council, NECO, has released the result for 2020 school-based senior secondary school certificate examination, with 73.89% of the candidates obtaining 5 credits and above, including English language and mathematics. Registrar and Chief Executive NECO, Professor Goswill Obioma, who announced the result, also stated the result of the examination body to conduct make-up examination for candidates who missed some papers due to NSAS protests. The presidency has formally reacted to the reported ultimatum by a Sokoto-based group, Muslim Solidarity Forum, to Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Kuka, to either tender an unreserved apology to Muslim Ummah over his recent malicious comments against Islam, or quietly and quickly leave the state, describing it as wrong and unconstitutional. A statement by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, says under the nation's constitution, every citizen has the right to freedom of speech and expression, owning property, residing in any part of the country, and moving freely without any inhibitions. And Nigerian's strength, he says, lies in its diversity, and therefore the present administration is committed to ensuring that the constitution is respected, and urge all Nigerians to also respect the rights and sensitivities of other fellow citizens. On insecurity, the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has dealt another blow on Boko Haram terrorists operating in the northeast of the country, with the destruction of no fewer than 3 gun trucks and neutralization of several insurgents at Mainok in Borno State. Coordinator, Directorate of Defense Media Operations, Major General John Enenche says the air operation was executed on 12 January 2021, and this is sequel to intelligence reports indicating that the Boko Haram terrorists in several gun trucks were traversing the Jakana-Mainok axis of the state. NAF helicopter gunships engaged the convoy of Boko Haram gun trucks and logistics vehicles, resulting in the destruction of 3 of the Boko Haram terrorist vehicles, some of which were seen engulfed in flames, and several of the terrorists were also eliminated in the process. And the latest figures from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and CDC shows 1,398 new cases of coronavirus has been recorded in 22 states and the FCT, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 1,399 in Nigeria. Out of the new infections, Lagos reported 542. The FCT has 131, Oyo 120, Rivers 113, while Plateau has 111, Kaduna and Kwara 71 each. Akwa Ibom 34, Sokoto 31, Benue 28, Ogun 27, Kano 26, Kebbi 17. And Osun has 12, Nasarawa 11, Delta and Gombe 10 each, Bayelsa and Borno 9, Edo 8, Ekiti 3, while Jigawa and Katsina confirmed 2 new cases each. Lagos, the FCT, Plateau and Kaduna are top. The breakdown of the cases per state chart with 20,062 active cases being managed across the country. And discharges recorded in the last 24 hours include 317 community recoveries in Lagos, while 241 in Kwara State and 134 in Plateau State managed in line with COVID-19 guidelines. And altogether, 82,555 have been discharged so far, with 1,382 deaths on record from the complication of coronavirus. On the foreign scene, United States President Donald Trump has been impeached a second time in his administration. This is coming after U.S. Vice President Mike Pence refused to invoke the 25th Amendment process to remove the president from office. The House voted along party lines with 231 voting in favor of impeachment and 197 voting against it. This vote is in reaction to the recent attack at the Capitol Hill, when the representatives were trying to certify Joe Biden's votes. This makes Donald Trump the only U.S. president to be impeached twice by the House. And that concludes the morning news highlight. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Nadabo and Kingsley after this break. Good morning.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women, and the most vulnerable groups in our society. These included broad plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years, the creation of 75 billion Naira National Youth Investment Fund to provide opportunities for the youths, and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Survivor Fund, through which government is A. Paying 3-month salaries of the staff of 100,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. B. Paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at the Corporate Affairs Commission. C. Giving a grant of 30,000 Naira to 100,000 artisans and guaranteeing market for the product of traders. These are in addition to many other initiatives such as farmer money, trader money, market money, N-Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These This and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic. Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency. The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Dear customer, link your Airtel number to your national identification number today. Here are easy ways you can do it. Dial *121*1# on your Airtel line and follow the prompts on the screen. Type in your 11-digit government-approved NIN number. You will receive a confirmation message to confirm your entry. You can also visit www.airtel.com.ng/NIN to link your phone number to your NIN. If you do not know your NIN, simply dial *346# to get it. No stress, no wahala.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
After dropping 2 points from a winning position last week, Wolverhampton Wanderers will be excited to welcome struggling West Bromwich Albion to the Molineux Stadium. Will West Brom prove an easy 3 points? Find out as Wolverhampton Wanderers take on West Bromwich Albion on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 1 p.m. this Saturday. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Babai Jebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Gold.com.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live from the studios of the Nigerian Television Authority. Today we're going to continue our discussion on schools resumption with a focus on primary schools, secondary schools, and nursery school, that is. In the meantime, federal government disburses performance grants to states as Nigerian manufacturers plan to key into African continental free trade area. Let's now join Kunle Adeyeye for details on business package.
The federal government of Nigeria has disbursed another round of performance-based grants to states in the sum of 123.348 billion naira under its State's Fiscal Transparency, Accountability, Sustainability Program for Results. In a statement by the Director of Press to the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mr. Hassan Dodo, Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed explained that the disbursement followed the achievement of results by the states in the just concluded 2019 Annual Performance Assessment. The assessment was carried out by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation as the independent verification agent and approved by the Program Coordination Unit of the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning. In another development, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria have described the opportunity to freely trade with 53 other African countries as appealing and a welcome development following the takeoff of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but stressed that complementary sectors of the economy like power have to be fixed for Nigerian businesses to compete favorably with their counterparts in other big economies of Africa. They believe once this is tackled, there will be exciting times ahead for Nigerian business owners, which will trickle down to the consumers.
Our activities usually are targeted initially towards the public, making sure products are safe for the public. And also, when it comes to the industry, we make sure that the industry is protected from people importing substandard products into the country.
It will be a huge. It will bring huge value to whatever we're doing it will amplify our business, it will expand our business, and even increase our production chains. It's quite a wonderful concept.
With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Many thanks, Kunle, for the business package. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
As usual, Bayo Atoyebi is already in the house to review the papers for us. Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you, Nadabo. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley.
Right,
good morning, Nigeria.
See you.
Thank you.
Okay, Nadabo.
Okay, now let's start with the Daily Trust and then see what is there. At the top, we find stories like Nigeria to obey OPEC pact on oil cut. That's according to the NMPC. And details of that can be gotten on page 15. And then PDP goes to court as APC. 11 others set for Kano local government polls. Page 24. And says 233,000 to resit NECO examinations. Details on page 20. The big story here is Rivers, Zamfara, Bayelsa, Imo fail federal government's transparency test. And the riders are Sokoto leads winners with 8.4 billion naira grant. Kano gets the list with 1.7 billion. 30 states share 113.2 billion naira, and CSO's task states on accountability. At the bottom of the page of the Daily Trust, we have a story on the United States. Trump impeached for the second time. You get the details of that on page 6. And then mutilated genitals, that is, of a 6-year-old Bauchi girl recovered. Details on page 23. And police probe Amotekun hardest crisis in Oyo. Details on page 9. And finally, veterans protest non-payment of minimum wage arrears. You get the details on page 22. Yes, sir?
All right, so let's take a look at the Punch newspaper from top to bottom. So above the nameplate, CBN procedures creating bottlenecks for exports, and that's according to exporters. Oshibajo, Kyari, and others meet oil majors over PIB. NECO releases results, 233,000 candidates to retake missed subjects. U.S. reps impeach Trump over Capitol Hill invasion. And you see the COVID-19 update there as a sidebar to the headline. The number of fatalities in the country, 1,382. Worldwide, well over 1.9 million. COVID-19 vaccine, that's the kicker for the lead headline. Lagos and Oyo planned purchase. Ogun, Cross River, Benue, fault allocations with 4 riders. We are not involved in federal government vaccine plans. That's according to Benue and others. We deserve more doses, says Ogun. Labor, NMA, and nurses and others demand opponents. And 20 doctors infected at Unilorin Hospital. That's according to the Association of Resident Doctors. Now, the photographs there on the front page of the Punch are from Washington, D.C., showing members of the National Guard. You already know the vote by the House of Reps members on the second impeachment against U.S. President Donald Trump. Hunter and 2 others killed in Kaduna fresh attacks. Bandits demand 50 million naira for 7 Zamfara APC chairman's abducted children. That's page 5. Lalong worried as Plateau residents shun COVID-19 regulations. NLC warns Ganduje over minimum wage, threatens strike. 22 suspects arrested for Boji's sex party and others. And presidency false quit warning to Kuka and cautions cleric. That's page 8. Bayo.
Thank you, Kinsley. Let's start with the news from National Examination Council. They have released the result of the 2020 Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination. The Chief Registrar, Professor Godwill Obioma, has indicated that arrangement has now been made for candidates who missed some papers during the EndSARS protest to rewrite their papers. That examination is to be part of the external examination scheduled for February 1st up to Wednesday, March the 3rd. NECO has also deregistered 12 schools for 2 years in over examination malpractices. During the October 2020 examinations, 4 schools in Adamawa, 2 each in Kaduna, Katsina and Niger, and 1 each in Taraba and FCT were found to have been involved in massive examination malpractices. So they are to be deregistered for 2 years for mass cheating in whole school cases. 24 supervisors have also been blacklisted for aiding and abetting examination malpractices. However, the NECO says that 33,470 candidates, representing about 2.61%, were involved in various forms of examination malpractices. And the NECO observed that this is lower than what was there the previous year. At least 20 doctors serving at the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital have tested positive to COVID-19. And the president of the association there, Badmus Habib, said this is in the past 2 to 3 weeks. He called on government to provide necessary resource and incentive to health workers to curb the spread of the virus. Dr. Habib says COVID-19 vaccine has brought hope, and that hope is what also is becoming a contention. The federal government has been advised to ensure transparency in the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccines. The Nigerian Medical Association, the Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, and NGO Allied for Survival of COVID-19 say that the priority should be given to frontline health workers and the aged. It may be recalled that the director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Faisal Shaibu, said 100,000 doses were due to arrive in Nigeria by the end of the January. Later on, 42 million free doses will also be received. But meanwhile, the National Primary Healthcare has already released a distribution formula for the vaccines that are expected at the end of this month. Already, many states are questioning the basis for the allocation, and others have indicated that they will now have to source for their own vaccine on their own. Latest results: 1,398 new cases were registered yesterday in 22 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Lagos this time had lower. You recall that Lagos 2 days ago had as high as over 700 cases. Yesterday it had 542. 3 states, Oyo, Rivers, Plateau, and the Federal Capital, had more than 100 cases. Total so far is 103,999. We had 12 deaths on Monday, 9 deaths Tuesday, taking our total fatalities 1,382. Presently, 20,062 of our compatriots are undergoing treatment for COVID-19. A female first-class law graduate from the Niger Delta University has alleged that some randy lecturers almost thwarted her ambition to score first class. A busy Radiri, who also repeated the first class feat at the law school and registered first class, said at a reception for her in Yenagoa that dedication to her studies enabled her to overcome the antics of frustration for sex for marks lecturers. What was her strategy? She says she was conscious of her dressing, not wearing skimpy dresses that will expose her body figure. And also, when a particular lecturer tried to play funny, she told her head of department, and the head of department held by calling the lecturer and warning him. She says that these are the challenges of the girl child. Governor Doye Duri was excited, and he announced an employment for her at the Niger Delta University, as well as automatic scholarship for her for master's and doctorate studies. She has been declared the new face of Bayelsa girl child. She's now a role model for all girl child, and that is to emphasize, if girls are determined, they can achieve success like any other body. Quick notice has become a matter of concern. The presidency says that the threat issued to the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, Matthew Hassan Kukuta, is unconstitutional. A religious group has asked the bishop to apologize for alleged malicious comment or quit the area of his existence. The special advisor to the president, Garba Shehu, says every Nigerian has a constitutional right to live everywhere he wants in Nigeria. He has a right to freedom of speech and right to reside in any part of the country and also to move freely without inhibitions. He said knee-jerk reactions will lead to fraying of enduring relationships and evisceration of peaceful communities. Groups and individuals must respect the feelings of fellow individuals, compatriots in their public utterances. He advised that Nigeria's strength lies in diversity. The right of all religions to coexist peacefully is a right that is provided for in the Constitution.
We didn't talk about the editorials. What was there in it? Talking about relay race of strikes becoming so much a worry now. SANU, NATT, that is National Association of Academic Technologies, and then non-academic staff union, all, getting up to compound the situation, in the education sector, which we've been talking about for months and months, Kinsley.
Yes, they describe it as a relay. A relay is like 100 by 4 meters, where you start and then you hand it over. We're now having a relay of strikes. ASU has finished his strike. NASU, SANU, and technologies have also given indication. This time around, it is over the distributable pool of the 40 billion that they are expected to get from the federal government. Now, the indication is that ASU will take 75% and allocate 25% to those 3 unions. And the 3 unions are kicking that. Previously, they had used the same formula, and ASU had gotten the substantial share. This time around, they are not accepting this substantial share, and they are threatening that the three other unions are capable of also stalling academic units. And the editorial is saying parents, students, and every Nigerian is already fed up with this strike, which is undermining the credibility of our university system. And they are appealing to them not to allow this distributable pool to undermine the resumption, which has now been declared for 18th of January, pending review over COVID-19 circumstances.
Well, the national president of NASU sat where you are sitting here yesterday
right?
when we were discussing the resumption of tertiary institutions, part 1, part 2 we're having today for secondary and primary schools. And the question arose, why is it that now that ASU has suspended its own strike and there are indications that universities will reopen, NASU is already on a 3-day protest. And with the potential to disrupt academic activities and therefore frustrate the reopening of institutions. Well, I will have to play back the tape to hear what he said, but it wasn't, I couldn't agree with him, but of course it was his opinion that, their mandate is not the same as that of ASU. They wrote to government didn't respond to them. They have been dialoguing, all kinds of things. And the pertinent issue was, why didn't you also make your complaints or embark on your own strike, pari passu with ASU? ASU has been on strike since March.
March 23rd to December 23rd.
So you allowed us to, that's the part of the Nadabo, that's what you're saying, the headline you read, relay of strike. Well, the greater question really, and this is a point I think we have raised in our newspaper review segment on Good Morning Nigeria. You cannot have an economy that can endure the kind of wildcat strikes that you have from all kinds of labor unions. And the government just seems helpless. What do you know? We wake up, I asked the question the other day, until this NIN registration and linkage with your telephone numbers, did you hear of the association of members of NIMC and so on and so forth? Did you know about the union? Nadabu?
Never.
And then suddenly they said, no, they are paralyzing. I don't know. I think that there must be a response. It's a critical industrial crisis that we face in Nigeria. And unless and until strategic measures are worked out, we are going to face this relay of strikes.
No, apparently there's no gainsaying the fact that industrial crisis, strike, are being used now deliberately to undermine the economy.
That's right.
And something has to be done about it.
They all know this quite okay, so that should not be the case as such.
Sadly, some of the demand of NASU, SANU, and the technologies are the same as the demands of our academic staff union of Nigerian universities.
But they're hinting that on the 40 billion naira allocation, the sharing formula,
that is the rest of them. The sharing of the spoil from what has been achieved. But aside from that, they are also emphasizing and referring to the 2009 agreement.
So anyway, it's one of those things in Nigeria. I think that the government should take some serious measure against this and see how it can be solved immediately. Bayo, thank you so much for being part of this review this morning. Thank you, as usual. We'll see you tomorrow. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We will now take a break. Our conversation continues on the resumption of schools in relation to secondary, primary, and primary schools. Stay with us.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You fit to do anything with the number. Everything is in no long thing with 444. No, let's scatter your brain with plenty numbers. I beg you, daddy number 444. Ọ̀rẹ́ mi máa lọ fọ́, ó jẹ́ sáré lọ 444. Mo ní máa fọ́, máa lọ gbọ́. Control code in your hand. 444. Meta is a metaphor. You can recharge for attention. You can subscribe for data. Anywhere you live, whatever you do, you can use the number.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it. This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Do you know that 35% of every girl child and women are raped on a daily basis? Some are killed in the process, some take their lives in shame, others remain emotionally dead for life. It is sad. This culture is not ours, definitely not African. How did we allow bad culture to infiltrate and take over? Even if you lack fear for the law, what of fear of God? And you, why do you cover up rape acts when it happens? Remember, a problem shared is a problem half solved. Never cover any rape act because a rapist is a murderer. It could be you or your loved ones next. Women must be treated like the prize gem they are. Say no to rape.
Dropping 2 2 points from a winning position last week, Wolverhampton Wanderers will be excited to welcome struggling West Bromwich Albion to the Molineux Stadium. Will West Brom prove an easy 3 points? Find out as Wolverhampton Wanderers take on West Bromwich Albion on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 1 p.m. this Saturday. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Bye Jebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Gold.com.
You're welcome back. To begin our discussion on the second part of school resumption amidst COVID-19, let's take this background report put together by Musbah Wahab.
Apparently, no Thomas is still in doubt. Coronavirus is real. But do they know that the second wave is indeed wavy is another doubt. Even with the vaccines projected at billions of naira still being expected in the country, Nigerians being guided with policies of government, experts say must learn to continually live with the new normal. For education, one of the core sectors being slowed down by the pandemic, policymakers and experts are still hoping to get things working. The idea is to learn how to shoot without missing, since the proverbial bird of coronavirus continues to fly without perching. After the school resumption at the end of the first wave, basic and secondary school students are again caught at home by the web of the second wave. With hope in sight for the back-to-school excitement, a recent indication casts shadows of doubt over the hope.
January 18th, we are reviewing it. We are going to review it. When we decided on that date, it was just a target towards which we were working. And of course, we are keeping it in view and looking at what is happening in the society.
But then, hours later, PTF came up with a clarification.
The last meeting we had, the Honorable Minister of Education agreed to take up the issue of school opening back to his ministry, and this will be reviewed. And an announcement should follow. So for the moment, as far as we're concerned, we haven't received any announcement from the Federal Ministry of Education.
Be that as it may, state governments are taking individual decisions based on the prevailing situation in their respective states. While students, pupils and parents await the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 for a possible new date of resumption, which apparently depends on situation in coming days, the common questions around is how can children of secondary and primary schools ages cope with the new normal, particularly the non-pharmaceutical safety measures of face mask, hand washing and physical distancing, among others. How prepared too are schools management, public and private, to provide the new normal compliance environments for the students? Come along as we have guests to build conversation around these issues on Good Morning Nigeria today.
All right, many thanks, Musbah Wahab, for that. The details of these issues. Let's welcome the Honorable Commissioner for Education in Kaduna State. He's Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed. Dr. Mohammed, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. Also part of this conversation is the Chairman, National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, FCT Chapter, Olushola Bankole. Olushola Bankole, delighted to have you with us this morning. All right, Nadabo, we have two other guests.
Okay, also joining us in Abuja is Mary Nwogu, Vice Principal, Academics, Federal Government Boys College, Abuja. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you, viewers.
And also in the studio here with us is the proprietress British Oaks Nigeria School, Maitama, Abuja, Ruth Aimwan. Thank you for joining us on this program this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you so much. Gentlemen and ladies, I would say, because the commissioner is about the only male conversant here. Let's get started with the commissioner, therefore, and see what there is this resumption. We started the discussion yesterday, and we focused really on the universities as such. Today we're taking up the secondary schools, primary schools, and the nursery schools, where you find yourself really, doing the job there. Now, what is the situation? Looking at this very, date, 18th, before 18th, after 18th, and the rest of them, the PTA of the federal government is saying that 18th can be reviewed, but some states have already resumed, some are yet to resume, and the rest of them. What's the situation at the moment, especially in Kaduna State?
Thank you. For us in Kaduna, the 18th, before or after is not what matters. What is critical to us is we are daily studying the incidence of the disease in the state. We are getting the daily report from the Ministry of Health. And from when the second wave started, we've looked at the trends of, the spread of the disease, particularly at the community. Out of the daily samples taken, virtually about 20-25% come out to be positive, which is very dangerous. And we're also very keen to understand the age brackets that the positivity come from. And it's mostly from, the years of 13, 14, to 25. And that age is a critical age for our children that are in school, both in primary, secondary, and that. So that's what we are studying right away. And we want to understand that the nature of the spread in the community, so that when we are reopening, we will reopen with our schools very ready, because in the first wave, what we did before we opened the schools, we were able to provide wash-hand facilities, face masks, we were able to provide sanitizers, we were able to disinfect, insect, and fumigate all the schools, and we were able to raise a level of awareness of teachers and students, including the PTAs, to understand that the fight against COVID-19 is not only, it's not going to be left only with government. They also have a role to play, and they were playing very key role at the first wave. So I think on our own part now, what we are coming out with with Minister of Education, Minister of Health, is between yesterday, today, and tomorrow, we want to look at the trends and now see how do we now open safely, so that when children come back to school, we ensure that parents have their rules and are playing the rules. Commuters that are bringing children from home to school are also doing their roles. Teachers, we ensure that we strengthen the school communities that are responsible for COVID-19, these committees within the students, committees within teachers, and also the school environment. That's what we are doing now, and I'm sure by tomorrow we should be able to come out with a final decision, whether to open on 18 or not.
Dr. Shehu, Kaduna State is one of the states, among the top 5 states that have real spike of this COVID-19, and especially looking at, the second wave. The second wave is a bit different from the first wave in the sense of how the spike is moving, and the victims of the spike really. Now, the measures you took during the first wave may not be the same measures you'll be taking now, given the spike and given the numbers and the rest of them. And you have very few days to go in this regard. And you're talking about yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Like I said at the beginning, the date of 18 is not what is critical to us. What's important to us is, for us, when we are opening with the consent, understanding, and buy-in of all stakeholders. We want to ensure that, it is not because we are number 3, 4, 5 in terms of the number. Yes, we are committed to testing. Let me just assure our viewers that Kaduna is committed to testing. Every LGA, we have different points of collecting samples and testing. So it is not the number that matters to us. It's the readiness of the community, the parents, and all stakeholders to contribute when we open schools, their own quota, to ensure that these children have come back to school very safe and fine. Let me give you an example. At the first phase, when we closed, we engaged all the media stations, the radio, TV, and Google Classrooms, and other internet provisions to reach our children at home. We have continued to do that, and we are continuing that. We are doing blended learning. We are doing, shift system in our classes. We are ensuring that every child is reached. We have reached all parents through their phone numbers that are valid and active. So what we are doing now is to ensure that children that are at home have something to do, even if they don't come back to school. Then parents that also have a challenge, let us understand the challenge so that we can address it. Part of the key challenges we had is cost of data. Let me just bring out one issue, cost of data. When we are engaging our children through internet, Google Classroom, what have you, parents complain bitterly about cost of data to maintain that. Parents complain that I have 2-3 children and I have only one phone. To access lessons and so on and so forth. So for us, it's organizing ourselves for the stakeholders in the state, for parents, PTA, private school proprietors, and so on and so forth, to understand that when you are opening, please open to ensure that you are opening safely, children are protected, everybody is playing his or her own role to ensure that when the children are back to school, they are also learning and also protected.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in Mrs. Ruth Aimwa. Mrs. Ruth Aimwa, let's have some understanding. For universities, there's some measure of independence in terms of organizing their respective academic calendars. Before you had the general shutdown last year, some institutions were actually in their second semester, others were in their first semesters, others had not even started. So what is the academic calendar that we are dealing with right now in terms of secondary and primary schools?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley. The calendar we are dealing with right now, going by the resumption in October, we resumed the first term in October, and now we are going in for the second term. And before we went on vacation in December, we agreed that we're going to resume on the 11th of January. But there was an information that came up later to say schools were going to resume on the 18th. So our calendar is going on very well, though we were affected really by the shutdown, because the long period of shutdown from March to October that we resumed. There were still several challenges we had, but we've been able to correct some of this shortfall that we had, prior to the lockdown, and we've been able to correct everything. So the calendar right now we're going in for the second term is the second. For January resumption is the second term.
It's the second term. 2021 academic session.
Yes, academic session.
Mrs. Mary Walgo, what is the situation with the federal government boys' college in Abuja? Is this the same? Is this the same thing? Have you? What is your calendar like?
Thank you very much. Our calendar is a little different. We are resuming for the first time. When we go back now, just like any other Unity college, we were able to complete our syllabus for the year 2019-2020 in December. Any moment from now, once the federal government announces the resumption, we're going back to school.
Nadabo, this is a very interesting point, and we're having to thrash this out now, because I'm sure we all recall what happened last year during the first lockdown, and there was a debate as to what should happen to pupils and students who were in their exit classes, those who needed to write their certificate examinations, and a special dispensation was then created for those in SS3 to go and write their exams. They wrote their exams, and then, of course, the results came out. NECO also wrote theirs, had some disruptions. I'm not quite sure what the timetable is now for WAEC exams, that's the senior certificate, and NECO. Let's bring in Olushola Bankole as well, who is the chair of the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, FCT chapter. Mrs. Bankole, please give us an indication. What is the situation with members of your association graduation? Are they on their first term? Are they on their second term? Is this likely to have an impact on the senior secondary school exams scheduled for I don't know when? And of course, JAMB is also around the corner.
Yeah, we actually resumed for a new session, first term 2020-2021 in October on the 12th last year, and so we rounded off. But one thing we did, which we asked all our members to do in FCT, was to do, based on what the FCT government also, suggested, is to round up, because in March, before we left, we had not written our exams, so we were able to, quickly do that within the first 2 weeks, and we also encourage all our members to do like a quick recap of what the children were to learn in third term, because we can't sweep anything under the carpet, and I believe we were able to do that effectively. And so this January we're hoping to resume for second term 2020-2021, and some of us, I know, even during the before we resumed, we're already planning that we're going to, as we go along. In fact, what some schools did is, maybe those schools that used to have after school classes, they were using the opportunity to catch up with some of the things that the students missed. And during this holiday, a few of the schools also gave some activities to brush the children, to get them up to speed with what they ought to have learned that they missed in the period that we weren't in school.
Well, thank you, Olusola Bankole. Let me come back to Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed here, Commissioner Education, Kaduna State. There seem to be, therefore, from the responses we've been getting here, some irregularities in the calendar, academic calendar, and that is not surprising, given the fact that the whole situation has been confused by COVID-19, and institutions, schools are trying to really sort themselves out and see how they can be able to make some gains out of these pains. Dr. Shehu, what is the situation in Kaduna State? Where are you at the moment? And how are you trying to, get this calendar straight? Talk less of the resumption date now. Let's talk about the calendar, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah. For us, we have finished third term at December. Our calendar said when we come in January, we're supposed to open on the 4th of January, before the second wave also came to, make us to close down early. So we are supposed to start a new session in January. But again, just like you said, we use most part of, the COVID-19 period at the first wave to cover, the third term. We have covered over, in fact, the second and the third term, and they were able even to send some exams material to students to now test to see if we are communicating with the students using the TV, the radio, and the Google Classrooms that we've been using both for the primary 6 and then the secondary school students. For us, except if what we are doing now, the impact assessment we are doing now proves otherwise, we will be commencing a new session in January. So if we come back by the 18th of the month, we'll start a new session. But before when we closed, when the second wave came and we closed down, we've asked the quality assurance to do an impact assessment in the state and see how much we have covered for the second and the third term. And the preliminary they have submitted that we have covered it. But we've asked for a second degree of assessment to give us, particularly from the remotest communities, the remote institutions, schools, because the number of schools we have, we are not disaggregating between the private and the public. We are having a policy where the private and the public schools are taking uniform decision. So I'm sure I'm on leave now, and I'm sure that report is ready now, and I'm sure in this very week they'll be able to now know. But whatever may be the outcome of that assessment, I assure you we are starting a new session in January as soon as we open, either on the 18th or thereabout.
If you begin a new academic session in January, when do you expect to close the academic calendar with your third term?
Yes, for the third term, we expect to close around March, because...
hang on, March?
Around March, end of March.
That's third term. No, you're saying first term. I'm talking about the third term. When do you expect the academic session
to end?
For
2020.
It's for you to explain. I'm not sure.
No. If you are talking for 2020, we have finished that of 2020.
Yeah.
For the 2021, certainly that's a big issue, and we expect to, depending on when we'll be having the NECO and why, because it's an issue of all those discussion we are doing now. We thought we can move the date. That's what we are discussing with Federal Minister of Education. If the date is moved, certainly we'll have around June, July. But if it's not, that means around May, we have to finish before May. But again, you see, we have adopted in Kaduna State what we call blended learning. We know that normal classroom hours in a school never give us enough time to cover the what we are supposed to cover.
Syllabus.
So that's what we are doing with parents, for them to understand that there is need for students to take in some lessons while they are in classroom, and then take in more lessons while they are at home. And that's what we are doing, a blended learning, so that they can take more. Or else it's going to be very difficult for us to cover what we want to cover and then close the term around May, June. It's difficult.
But Mrs. Mary Onwago, how does this also affect your scheduling? If you are resuming in January for the first term, when then do you hope to have your second and third terms?
Okay, in the Federal Ministry of Education at the beginning of third term last year, they built out a calendar of activities which we have been following. And once we resume in January, we are supposed to end the first session, the first term in September, and on. We are to end the calendar for 2020-2021 in September. The only thing that is different there with other sessions is that the holidays have been made, the duration of the holidays are reduced. In some of the terms, we have just a week holiday, and we go on, just so that we can come back to the normal calendar. Borrowing from what the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Kaduna State, said, we have also in the Federal Ministry of Education, especially Federal Government Boys College, Abuja, introduced e-learning to our learning. And then right now, as I'm talking to you, all the students are busy with their assignments. We introduced that since 2013. We started with an organization that is consulting with Federal Ministry of Education called Crystal Digital. And we've gone online since. Our students are used to going online to get their assignments. So during the COVID-19, we introduced a lot of topics that we know may not be able to have the proper treatments when school resumes, and then we gave them as assignments and all that. And that helped us to catch up. And so we continued with that. Now, as the holiday has been prolonged, we're supposed to resume on the 11th of January, but now it's entering 18th January, tentative still. We have given them some assignments to do to cover topics that would have started with at the beginning of this term.
Oh, many thanks, Mary. Ruth, let's hear from you. There is no doubt that really COVID-19 has dealt a very big blow on the education system, and of course, almost every sector of life. Everybody is affected, just like Mary said, and of course the Commissioner, Education from Kaduna State here. We are all putting that together and then see how we'll be able to go ahead. What has been your experience, Ruth, at British Oaks Nigeria School? What has been the experience in trying to building up towards reopening the schools? A lot of measures have been taken by various institutions depending on their location and the facilities they have. What is your experience?
The experience about the resumption?
No, not the resumption. Talking about how prepared, let's put it this way. Okay. How prepared have you been in trying to open the school, looking at the short-changed nature of the syllabus, the time, and even the students? Being at home for quite some time is not really easy.
No.
And having to catch up, so many measures have been put in place, e-learning and the rest of them. What has been the experience there?
The experience we've had subsequently, I mean...
What are the measures you've taken there, let me put this straight, what are the measures you've taken in order to bring the students up to speed in order to resume?
Okay, we've put a lot of measures in place, just like when we resumed in October, last year. We ensured that the children, the classes were well spaced out. And right from the gate, the children, we have the temperature checks, and we also have the washing of hands and the sanitizer, and we also have wearing of face mask. We ensure that the children wear face masks. So the children are ready to resume. Mm-hmm. Education is the bedrock of a nation. Yeah. So we understand what is ravaging the world right now, COVID-19. But there are some things that we cannot do without. You can see from our commissioner and Mrs. Mary, there's this disparity right now about the calendar. We have the disparity in government schools and we have the disparity in private schools. Now, if government now decides to also extend, the dates, it will definitely affect the whole system. So it is good for, yes, we have some, we're doing some online classes, we're having some online classes and all that, but all these things have some negative effects on the children. They have some negative effects that, is telling on the children. And now the children are also used to this. They are used to it's not new to them. COVID-19 is not new to the children. So they already know how to observe social distancing and the wearing of face masks and all that. So prolonging the dates of resumption will further affect the educational system of the country.
Well, there's no indication to that effect yet. It's being reviewed, and then the Ministry of Education will come out with something tentative.
So we are ready. We are ready to receive the children. We are ready to receive the children. We've disinfected our premises. We have fumigated the premises also. And the children are at home, also having their various assignments and all that. But they need to come back to school. They need to get back to school.
It seems you're insisting on the coming back to school.
And they need to come back to school because I feel the online thing isn't working. Not that it's not working, but they need to be in. Sorry?
It has limitations.
Yes, it has some other limitations, just like I talked about the negative effect. And there has to be interaction within children in class.
Face-to-face interaction.
Face-to-face interaction in class is very key.
We will explore that in further detail. But let's just try and see some of the policy implications of the resumption of schools as rescheduled or another postponement. Olushola Bankole, I want to bring you again into this conversation. Clearly, from the explanations provided by the Kaduna State Commissioner for Education and the Vice Principal of Federal Government Girls College, and what you also said earlier, and agreed to by Mrs. Ruth Aimwa, the private schools that began their first term, say, using your two examples, in October last year, you are ready for your second term. For the two government representatives who are here in terms of their schooling, they are starting their first term just right now. What, in your opinion, needs to be done to at least streamline the academic calendar for both the private and public schools, and therefore also whether there should be or there shouldn't be simultaneous interaction with both WAEC and NECO in terms of scheduling the examinations for senior secondary and then junior secondary, those in SS3 and those in JS3?
All right. it's so important. The health of the children is critical and is very important to us. But you know, it has taken us so long. We had like 7 months in during the long lockdown to prepare. And to be candid, for instance, FCT NAPS, we have a document that we had prepared. Beyond COVID, any pandemic, we are ready to get our children learning, whether at home or in school. But we know that right now, across the world, even in countries where the ravage is so terrible, the children continue to learn. And a lot of them did not even lock schools down. So what is important is we've been taught, we need to put things, so many things, facts and figures on the table. We realized that last term, when the schools, whether the public or private, were on, there were not cases, maybe a few cases, and I do not think they are so terrible, that happened in a few schools across the nation. And, you know, they were dealt with. I want to actually emphasize that when children are in school, because school is a structured environment, a lot of the protocols and all the conditions that need to be put in place to even help the populace, including the parents of the children, their uncles, aunties, and everybody around them. We know how children are. You'll be surprised that they are the ones that we actually help the government to enforce and emphasize to their parents and people around them. Oh, no, don't touch me. Wash your hands first, and all of that, which we do with them when they are in school. You see, this dichotomy, we need to do something about it. Education, like Mrs. Moa said, is the bedrock of any nation. No nation can develop or grow beyond the level and quality of the education system. So we need to find a place. What we were looking at is, by, you know, usually the school year generally ends by July. Even if we stretch it, like the federal government is trying to do, and the federal government college, stretch it to like early September, and we all resume for a new, we're hoping that by 2021, 2022, everything should be normalized. Because, for instance, the international exams, the external exams like WAEC, like NECO, that are not in-school exams, or whether you are in public or private school, you are going to write. And if we don't do something right now, we're going to be causing problem. Definitely, all the protocols in place, I'm sure they are good enough. What we just need to do is to monitor and ensure they are put in good, they are implemented and enforced across the schools. And we'll have safe schools in session. And like, we already know, of course, blended learning is the order of the day. I'm so glad that the Kaduna State government is taking it serious, and that the federal government college in Apo here is doing so much. But we need to actually put, what we have put on paper, we need to actually implement it across the world. Across the nation, rather. And, we shouldn't, because what people do say, when those of us in private schools are talking about blended learning using online classes and all of that, but we definitely would need to blend face-to-face, online, blended. And whether the child is in the rural area or in the urban area, if we are serious about it, we can get that done. But we need to sincerely get to work and resume. It's so good that, it's clear that it's not as if we were asked not to resume, except there is something that comes up. Because that's been the confusion that's been going around, which is also making some states and some schools, private schools particularly, to be agitated. Are we supposed to resume? So far, we have not gotten any contrary information. Yes, we hope that there will be monitoring to ensure that all the protocols are in place, and I'm sure schools are safe for children to return back. Thank you.
Well, Olushola, let me just hang on you a little bit and then make a little clarification there. Or maybe we'll get to know much about this association of, proprietors of private schools. You are the FCT, chapter chairman here, and I believe you have been, sitting and talking with your colleagues across the country at that level when talking about the proprietors of, private schools in Nigeria. How has this optimism you are expressing, permeated down to other states? And I don't know whether at your own level, at that level, we've been discussing this and they're hearing or getting feedbacks from, you know, various chapters across the country and how they are tackling the situation.
Of course, we actually held a national leadership meeting yesterday. In fact, this morning by 11, our national president is going to have a press conference, and some of the things we discussed, because we actually, like I said, you know, we're not oblivious of the fact that there is COVID-19 and it's ravaging and all of that, but we are also so concerned about the health of the children. At a point, you know, some of us, even during the last lockdown, were saying, okay, we're not in a hurry, but, you know, when we put facts and figures on the table, we realize that the truth is safe, and that goes across. In fact, I learned some states have resumed. In the meeting yesterday, I think Ogun State, Oyo State has resumed on Monday this week, and, you know, across the states, almost across the nation, almost all the states are resuming on Monday, 18th. I think everybody except, you know, and most, there are commissioners of education in states that have also already given the instruction, please go ahead on the 18th, every school should resume. So we are relating across the nation, yes.
Thanks, Olusola Bankole. I would like you to just respond to this, because sometimes the view has been expressed that private school proprietors are eager to reopen for economic consideration. I mean, public schools, they are part of the either national or state or local government budget, but private schools, they have to fend for themselves. And when you are short, your livelihood is also affected.
When anyone that is an educator, a sincere educator, knows that you need the children to be fine before you can even make the money anyway. And the truth is, I know it's difficult to convince people, but those that are close to us in private sector, they know how important the health of the child. I mean, how do you make the money anyway if the children are not healthy, their parents are not comfortable releasing them to you? Of course, the parents are they are the ones that even will decide for the children, whatever the class they are in from nursery to secondary, particularly for our own sector. We are not concerned more about the economic part than the health of every one of us. You can't teach a child who is not feeling well. Before COVID, part of our rules of engagement in private schools is sick children shouldn't be in school because we are not hospitals. And so if a child is not well, if the environment is also not, good enough, the child, those are part of there are so many things that make for effective learning. The environment is key. Environment, the child, which includes the health. So we are not overburdened about the economic impact. Even though we expect that the government at this stage should get to see that we are supporting them to make things work. During the lockdown, for the interviews I granted, I kept getting concerned because I know private schools, we can sort ourselves, and a lot of us actually did. Even though there are so many, particularly in the rural areas, that had a lot of challenges getting to get across to their children to even learn. Some couldn't even get WhatsApp. But a lot of us were able to do so many things. At a point when the lockdown was relaxed, so many parents were going to, even the schools in the suburbs, to pick home fund assignments, typed and printed, and take it home. Give the children and all that. But the point is, education is critical. Whether government or private, we need to take it serious. So it's not about economic gratification for us. It isn't. That's the truth.
Many thanks, Olusola. Thank you for that insight. Let me hear from Dr. Shehu Usman. When we look at education itself, it's one thing we cannot run away from, that no matter what, people have to get educated. And that is why in even the country that were, hard hit by coronavirus, education continued in various forms and ways. And some schools were not even closed as such. And then they continued because the value of education cannot be, quantified as some more or less like a priceless, endeavor. You mentioned 18 to 25 is, the age bracket where, most of your students are. And looking back, 18 to 25, the first wave of coronavirus was not so much affecting those classes or for those age group. And this time around, here we are, it's now getting across to everybody else, the new variant and whatever you have and the rest of them. Looking at the situation at the moment, what would you say are the new things you want to do in trying to get these students accommodated in school? When I was watching you yesterday, Kinsley, I think the NASU man talked about expansion of classes, expansion of hostels, and the rest of them.
As a condition
for the reopening and the rest of them. I don't know how you look at this and how you really want to structure the reopening in such a way that it becomes really safe for students to really be in school.
Thank you. I think a quick answer will be that yes, I want to add more classes, but that's not actually the solution. The solution should come from using the available resources to ensure that children get back to classes. Under every circumstances, you can still bring back students back to class. That's what I believe in. In the first wave, we had isolation centers in all the schools, and we had prepared, those centers. We've linked up with the health departments of each local government. We've had a focal person in the local government that are visiting. We have ambulances that are visiting the institutions. Even when students were writing WAEC and NECO, we had 2-3 cases of COVID in some schools. They were, isolated, and they continued writing their exams, and they wrote their exams and finished. So I feel that we can still do the same thing. I am emphasizing what I have said at the beginning. The role of ensuring that a child should be in school and learn is not only the role of a teacher and government. It's the role of a lot of stakeholders. And that's why when we're doing this, we're ensuring that every stakeholder must come on board to understand his or her own role. Okay, take for example, right now we are trying to ensure that in all the 542 secondary schools we have at least a sick bay, a functional sick bay, and with communication, risk communication process. They know whom to communicate with, whom to invite, at what time, and what are those symptoms they should look at. Train people in the institution, among students, among teachers, that will monitor the various signs and symptoms of COVID-19 and how to get help if they want to call anybody around. 3, we are discussing with Road Transport Workers Union to ensure that anytime they are called upon to give an assistance in any institution around them, either primary or secondary school, they should quickly go there. We are holding meetings with them. We are also ensuring that in every of our primary and secondary school, they have the infrared thermometers. In Kaduna State, one of our polytechnics developed a standing solar thermometer that you can just pass over, and it will record your temperature, and it will just so you don't need to. So students will just be passing, and it will be recording and be showing the temperature to facilitate, because of number of students in one institution. Infrared one by one will take a lot of time. We are also ensuring that in every school, either boarding or day, we have a reserved area that when somebody is sick or is suspected to have something, we go there, and parents are quickly contacted. So what I'm saying is that if the parents, Road Transport Workers Union, the health team, the teachers, the students, Ministry of Health, and so on, including some NGOs that have come to help us, all agree to say, okay, let's open. We are ready. We are taking care of this cluster. We will open. Learning will continue, and it will be very interesting for everybody to participate, because everybody has understood the role he or she is to play, and also is playing that role. Review meetings are held where we have challenges, we take over those challenges, and then the learning also using TV, radio, the Google Classrooms, the YouTube we have in our website. We have downloaded all the lessons. We have put all our lessons, for each class into a session in Kaduna State, and we have downloaded it in YouTube. We have downloaded it in our website. So teachers can just go in and access it and teach. So for me, I'm just trying to say that let every stakeholder agree that opening of this school is paramount and it's important, and every child must go back to school. I will tell you, we lost some students.
Yeah.
After the first wave, when we opened, some students didn't come back. In some remote areas, some didn't come back. So you need to go back again and start another advocacy all over again to bring them back to school. They would say, there is COVID, there is COVID. But I am saying, with all sense of responsibility, that our schools are safer than some communities in our communities. Our schools are more safer because when they come to the schools, they are under supervision of their friends, supervision of their teachers, supervision of the communities that are going around. But in their communities, nobody is taking care of. Majority of them, particularly in rural areas, nobody takes care of where are they going to play, which mosque are they going, which church are they going, which market are they going, who is taking care of this. For me, it's better for us to all accept that we all have responsibilities to, all of us, and then we agree to bring back children to continue learning, and then we continue to improve from where we are. I think that will be the best for us.
Okay, Dr. Schultz, thank you very much. In line with the point you just made, UNICEF, of course, also makes the argument that schools are not a super spreader sport. In addition, of course, to the various matters that they take care of. But you've talked about stakeholder consultation, and in particular, the Federal Ministry of Education says, look, they will have to consult with stakeholders before making a final pronouncement whether to proceed with the 18th of January date of resumption or whether to otherwise revise it. Is the Kaduna State government part of this consultation? That's one. And second point would be, I asked the question earlier, is WAEC or NECO, or are WAEC and NECO also being consulted so that we can have a fairly stable academic calendar for the remainder of 2021 and then kick off 2021-22 on a perhaps more stable note?
Yes. Kaduna State has been participating in all the consultations with Federal Ministry of Education. We've been contributing our quota in terms of what we see on ground. Let me go back to the first wave that we had. Part of what we were not happy with, we held a meeting of the 19 northern states, those of us having the exchange programs, and found out that we at that time we had a lot to do to prepare students, to prepare our environment for students to come back to schools. And we came out with some issues for Federal Ministry of Education to look at. Only for us 2-3 days after that, federal government declared that schools can reopen for WAEC exams. But we said no, we shouldn't rush. Let's do an assessment to find out how schools, both public and private, have been able to cover what they've been, what they're supposed to cover. That was not done. People were rushed to go and write WAEC and NECO. That we join. Every state also, we all call states to also go and join and do and write WAEC and NECO. But again, even after that, we laid some series of complaints. For example, the first thing we said, we are inviting Federal Ministry of Education and the relevant stakeholders to look at this issue of e-learning and intervene on the cost of data. Service providers should be brought in as stakeholders to look at how can they bring cost of data to a bearable level where parents can affordable level. On monthly basis, the assessment we made, even at remotest communities, they spend not less than 10 to 15,000 naira for data per month. And we look at that as very high, particularly with rural communities. Private schools have no problem. Parents are ready to pay any amount in private schools. But again,
that's not exactly correct.
That's an assumption, but I can build my facts on it. I can build my facts on that. Thank you. Yeah, it's an assumption, but it has worked. I have seen it working. Parents were eager for children to go back to school in private schools because they are tired of them at home. I told some parents in a live program when they were asking us, when are you going to open school? I said, are you tired of the children at home? You have a role to play. Now you should now appreciate the role of a teacher. That you have handed over these children to. The child will stay with his teacher from morning to evening. You only come back to work and come and pick and go home and prepare the child against tomorrow. So simply, to go back to the point, we said, let's work on this, because e-learning cannot be efficient without looking at the cost of data. That's number one. Number two, can we have a national intervention in terms of developing a policy that will facilitate e-learning, a policy in communication that will ensure that states and institutions can access some of these issues, some of this data, some of this information at no cost? Three, how can we ensure that even the smartphones that we're using, with some arrangement with some providers, can be obtained at an affordable cost, so that a parent that have 2, 3, 4 children, and all of them are supposed to have an e-learning interactions, will have one at an affordable cost. These are things we expect our almighty Federal Minister of Education, Communication Commission and federal level to intervene. And we have made that submissions. We have made that points.
Any report from them?
They are doing their best. Let me speak for them.
So you're still waiting?
We are still waiting. We are still waiting. But again, at state level, we also employ our state governors also to also invest a lot in this, because I will speak for Kaduna State. When I look at the cost of the resources invested in procuring these face masks, hand sanitizers, washing facilities in each institution, infrared thermometer, running of these ambulances, running of isolation centers, awareness program, training of teachers on how to handle COVID-19 patients, and so on and so forth, is so enormous. State governments deserve some palliatives from federal government, or from some funding system. In private schools also deserve some form of support. I will tell you, there are, like in Kaduna, we have over 450,000 children attending Islamia and Quranic schools that nobody is talking about what they are doing, who is taking care of them. When we close down, they have to close down. The teachers that are teaching in those schools are earning 10,000 monthly, 12,000 monthly, maximum of 15,000. They came to us to say, look, do you also consider us as citizens of Kaduna State and citizens of Nigeria? When you are taking decision, do you consider us that we exist? I said, yes, we do, because I have about 3.1 million children going to school in Kaduna State, both pre-nursery, nursery, primary, secondary, junior secondary and secondary schools. So I have you in mind. Then what's our position here? So we expect a policy, both at the national and then at the state level, so that every stakeholder is taken care of. That's the only way we can all feel some sense of belonging, and then we can move forward to say that, yes, we have a role to play and we can contribute and ensure that when children are back in class, whether COVID-19 continue at any rate, second wave, third wave, whatever wave, we should have our children in school, as long as we all agree that children should go back to school.
There wouldn't be any third wave, whatever.
We pray that there is none.
We hope that the first, second, let it just stop there.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of issues we really want to discuss, but it seems time is first running on us, running against us. We need to look at the boarding system. We need to look at the schools, in the day school, the shift system, and the rest of them. In the meantime, we'll now take a break and then say, when we come back, we'll talk about these issues and much more on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll now take a break. Stay with us for a moment.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the game changer, His Excellency Governor Abdullahi Suley of Nasarawa State. Broadcasting in a digital economy, Maxwell Logo gives an insight. This edition also features Nancy Naji of AIT, a name synonymous with business. Meet the NCDC boss, Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, also x-rays the relevance of social media in the modern society. Meet some TV professionals who have impacted their spaces and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion. Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting, messages, and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
After dropping 2 points from a winning position last week, Wolverhampton Wanderers will be excited to welcome struggling West Bromwich Albion to the Molyneux Stadium. Will West Brom prove an easy 3 points? Find out as Wolverhampton Wanderers take on West Bromwich Albion on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 1 p.m. this Saturday. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Babai Jebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Gold.com.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. All our guests are still with us. Let's bring in again Mrs. Ruth Aimor. Mrs. Aimor, well, it's obvious that the argument for reopening of schools is a strong one, but what should be the obligation of proprietors and of teachers and then of the pupils themselves, plus their parents, when schools do reopen?
Yeah, everyone has his or her own responsibilities to the reopening of schools. Parents are already managing the children at home. I'm sure children also go to church, to go to mosque, and all these protocols are being observed there. And even the teachers and the school owners, we as school owners have put a lot of measures in place to ensure that schools reopen safely. And our teachers are also being trained to also observe these protocols. And the children also, even before we went on break for the Christmas, we also had some talks with them to ensure that they put all this in. So it's not new. It's not new at all. And the churches are open, the mosques are open. We have some monitoring team who go from time to time to ensure that all these protocols are being observed. So the government can also set up monitoring team like they did last year to also ensure that these protocols are being observed in school. The classrooms are well spaced out. The social distances, like we've talked about, ensure that the seats are far apart from each other. 2 meters, that's the recommended plan.
The distance.
Yeah, distance.
But you know, Mrs. Aimor, in general, private schools don't have a problem of overcrowded classrooms because the pupil-teacher ratio is manageable.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, Mrs. Mary Wango, what is likely to happen in a government school when you do reopen? And all classes, of course, are reopened now, not those who are writing their certificate exams or otherwise. How do you intend to manage that? Or are you going to get into a staggered system of having shifts in the morning, some running from 1 hour to the other, or what should parents and the pupils themselves expect?
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that we are fortunate in Federal Government Boys College, Abuja, to have 2 campuses, just like King's College, Lagos. Our junior school is in Uye, and the Federal Ministry of Education was magnanimous enough to ensure that we started with that campus in January, prior to the pandemic that came in March. It's just not a coincidence, I believe. I see it as divine. So we moved the junior school to Uye, while the senior school remained in Apo, the old campus. Now, this is a plan that has been on ground for almost 20 years. But the intervention from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, specifically the Ecological Fund Office, ensured that the gully that has deterred that movement was filled, and then we moved on. So I can say that the issue of physical distancing in the hostel area and accommodation, being a boarding school, has been partially taken care of, meaning that the 2 campuses now will accommodate our students effectively, and they will be sparsely populated, so there's good spacing. But also, we have issues with day students. We are a boarding school, but being a city school, we have some day students. And that's where our main concern is. We are concerned about everybody. Our protocols are in place. We intend to keep it going and heighten it. We have a task force among the staff and students. We have a monitoring team, a hygiene team that ensures that these things are complied with. But then the day students come in. We don't know their interaction outside. And then they come in every day. But then you have the boarding students that are within the campus, so you can monitor these ones from the classrooms to the hostels. What we did in the classes when WAEC started was to have 14 students per class. And in fact, when the director for West Africa, WAEC, came to our school, he commended us. The PAMSEC, Federal Ministry of Education, also commended us. They said we have even beat the spacing. We spaced more than 2 meters apart, and we had it going well. Then the other students came back. I'm grateful to say that we've not had any incident of infection in our school. We have an isolation center that was never used. We have nurses that are qualified and experienced. We even have a visiting doctor that comes. We have provision space for them and, drugs that can take care of preliminary things. We have our infrared thermometers. It may interest you to know that the day the PAMSEC visited our school, he got to the gate with his team, a high-powered team from the Federal Ministry of Education, and they were not allowed entry until they were sanitized and the infrared thermometers were used to check their temperature. So we comply with all the protocols. So we want to heighten on that. The challenge, like I said, is that the stakeholders, some came in and provided us with sanitizers, face shield, face masks, like the CAS consult came in with a 3-in-1 pack, and all our students have hand sanitizers handy. So throughout the period of exams, or we make them display it on their tables, they wear their face masks and their face shield. The housemasters ensure that they use their face masks in the hostels, and everything is going well. We are looking forward to resumption. We will ensure that what we did before is improved upon. Like we are ensuring now that the students coming with more face masks, and then we have mapped out bed spaces, that your bed is here, we marked it, we give you a space so you don't move it to another person's space. In the classrooms, like that. In the laboratories, we ensure spacing. We don't do the assembly thing with many people. And to cope with the issue of overcrowded classroom in certain subjects where many students offer, like English language, mathematics, these are not elective subjects, so you're going to have a crowd coming in. We also broke our classes into smaller groups at that time. So if SS1A, for instance, is having English language, we use 2 teachers to teach SS1A. So you go to this venue and you go to the other venue. We use all our ICT labs for lessons now. Even under the trees, we use mobile classrooms. We want to ensure that everywhere is now a class, just so that we can have proper space in the dining hall and all that. Thank you.
Mary Ugo, I think you made so many valid points, and it's really appreciative. We're really appreciative of the fact that you're taking so many measures in order to ensure that the students get the best out of this difficult situation. But I may still want to hang on you a little and then maybe get a little explanation on this issue. The day students and the boarding students, these are 2 different kinds, and that's one of your worries and concerns. The day students, they come from home for education, for learning, and then go back and then come back the next day. Nobody knows what happens between today and tomorrow as they go and come. But for the boarding students, it's more or less like, you know, an easier population to manage, and then easier to control, and much safer a place to learn for them. For the day students, when they come every day, do they have any specific, you know, tests they go through in order to ascertain their wellness before they get going, or we just use the normal protocols and there we go?
Well, for the day students, like I said earlier, that we ensure everyone coming into the school is checked with the infrared thermometer and his hand is sanitized. They go through that. Then we have mapped out 2 teachers who we know are very serious and decent and disciplined. They stay at the gates every morning from 6:30 a.m. to ensure that every child coming in is checked. The health personnel detail one of the persons. The security men support the health personnel, and the day students are subjected to the protocol of hand washing, hand sanitizing, and then we check their temperature. Basically, that's what we do for the day students, and then they file in.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mary Nawogo. Let's listen into some of the tweets that have come in from our viewers now, and then we'll return to our guests to get their closing thoughts. Festus Akimboye, schools must be given a deep clean, and government must ensure there's robust hand and respiratory hygiene in place in all schools before allowing them to reopen. Hand sanitizer stations must be in abundance, and children must be supervised when using them because of the risks of ingestion. Right.
Montana Farouk says, are there other institutions in the world where people acquire fundamental basis of formal education and its application apart from the schools? That's the question there. If schools remain closed, why else do we prepare the future generations on how to provide solutions to the likes of COVID-19 and others?
Andrew Nana tweets, schools closed, markets opened, churches, mosques, motor parks, and others opened. Is there a plan against education? Kill education, kill a nation.
Leo Fadaka says our universities should be centers of research into the COVID-19 instead of shutting them down for the pandemic. The long-run effect of schools shut down is counterproductive to overall development. So COVID-19 protocol must be put in place while schools resume.
Now, this is from Big Daddy Osarume. We cannot continue to shut down schools. Allow schools to reopen and enforce COVID-19 protocols. Our children need to go back to school to learn.
That Stephen once again says schools are closed while NIMSI centers are still open, with thousands crowded in a small space every day. What an irony.
Hassan Sadiq, if proper measures are in place and students and lecturers key into the protocols, I think that we can have our students back to school without or even fewer cases of the virus.
Suleiman Babagana says strictly enforcing the protocol after reopening schools to prevent the spread is the way forward, as continuous delay in resumption does more harm than good to the education sector.
Yunusa Idris, let schools resume. The authority of each school should allow pupils resume in phases in order to reduce congestion in classes. COVID-19 pandemic and NSAS protests opened our eyes that we are lacking certain things, from oxygen to inhale in our hospitals to security personnel.
But Amasi Haruna Adamu says the students are tired of staying at home, and this has been affecting them psychologically or otherwise. Meanwhile, the government and head of institutions must ensure strict adherence to the guidelines, especially social distance and face masks.
Hello, Muhammad. We have to learn to live with COVID-19 as we have been able to study under various circumstances. My advice is for the federal government to go ahead and reopen schools, as we cannot continue to increase our ignorance, thereby depleting our knowledge.
Usman Banu Kantu says, so schools should be allowed to reopen for academic activities because the pandemic has no definite date of getting rid of. However, all school stakeholders should be supportive in making the school child friendly.
Akedru Olagbajo says school resumption would be a test of how infectious the virus will be compared with other viruses such as smallpox, chickenpox. It may turn out to explain the myth surrounding the coronavirus or show us the reality of how deadly it is and propel us to look for a homegrown solution. All right, so those are the tweets that we can accommodate in the meantime. Ms. Olushola Bankole of the FCT chapter of the Association of Proprietors of Private Schools. Dr. Shehu, that's Commissioner for Education in Kaduna, has talked extensively about the cost of data and the proposals made to the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Education. And you have also referenced the whole idea of blended learning. But this is coming at a huge cost. Data cost is excessive. I wouldn't know whether this was part of the figures that they had in computing the growth of certain sectors in the economy in Narabu. Last year, the National Bureau of Statistics was saying that despite the coronavirus, there was growth in the ICT sector. Yeah, where was that growth coming from? Was it coming from the price gouging that you had with persons who were subscribing to data? You load 3,000 now, within the next 1 hour, you don't see the money anymore. Are private school proprietors also joining, let's say, the other government bodies in waging a lobby, as it were, for discounted data costs for educational purposes?
Oh, definitely. For FCT NAPS, I think we actually started this since 2018-2019 session. We wrote letters to Airtel, we wrote letters to Ntel, and conversations are still on. Ntel has graciously done a reduction, which we still feel is not enough, and we are still appealing. MTN was also trying to do something, but we are appealing for unlimited internet access, that does not get capped at a reduced rate for the schools, and then the children too. We've done that. We've written official letters, forth and back. We have even had conversations, forth and back with the service providers. Some of them will complain that they can't go below this rate because they also have bills to pay to government, and except the government could also reduce those bills, that's when they will do more. But we are appealing that they should use it as a CSR, so that we could sing their praise, that during this period particularly, they were able to, because we can't run it. I mean, it's just unthinkable that any school anywhere, including in the rural areas, that a child is not able to. You were talking about the growth in the ICT sector. The world of work these our children are going into, they're not going to be talking about how to write something. They're going to be talking about how to use technology to get things done. We're talking of telemedicine now and all of that. Of course, the vaccines that came out, a lot of IT went into getting, the results, and the research was done and all of that. So technology is key to life. As one of the service providers will say, data is life. In a way, it's so key to get anything done, even documentation. Of course, as we are on set now, a lot of technology is being deployed to get people listening to you all over the world. I know, because it's not only in Nigeria that we watch NTA. And so we need to key into this, and we as NAPS FCT particularly, we've written, and the national body also had consulted with MTN at a point, but so far some of these discounts they give are not enough. Schools in the cities may not mind, but schools that are and just to correct an impression, a lot of people think private schools are those schools that charge in dollars. In FCT, for instance, out of about 3,000 plus member schools, we have just about 1,000 that are you can call city schools. The rest are in the suburbs. Even those in the city, the majority of them are low-cost schools that are charging sometimes less than what some public schools are charging. It may surprise you, but that's the truth. For us to know that being a private school proprietor is not just about the money. There are things that, passion drives you to get done, and you get satisfaction, and then you move on. So for technology, we've really done a lot, and we are hoping the conversations will continue, and then we really will get these service providers to cut down at very reduced rate that even the common woman who is a marketer, who is in the market, who sells small things, can afford some little token to pay for data for their children. Thank you.
Thanks, Olushola Bankole. We thank you so much for that insight. Finally, closing now. Let's see how we really going to have that. Dr. Shehu, maybe not more than 60 seconds. How far have you gone in trying to see, this is going to be a policy issue, talking about the data thing, because it's going to be a serious issue. The new normal now is all about data, it's about technology. And everybody must use this, whether you like it or not, because that's the new normal. So at least having to bring it down to a certain level will go a long way in assisting education. You've already said so. How far have you gone in trying to see that it becomes a policy, maybe putting it across to the NCC at that level, or putting it across to the federal government so that they can take it, or the National Assembly, whatever? What avenues are you exploring?
Thank you very much. In the beautiful proposal, a protocol developed by Federal Minister of Education that we are using in our states on the protocols of, for us to open schools, e-learning has been recognized as one of the platforms for advancing the course of knowledge. That's the key, that's the beginning. Secondly, now we will have to look at the data and the technology, and there's need for a policy on this that will establish that. So for communication, the NCC is key and critical. For the technology in education, the Federal Minister of Education also need to play its own role. For me, as a state commissioner, we are putting our heads together as commissioners of education to ensure that we give all the support the Federal Minister of Education requires for us to speak with one voice to ensure that things like that happen. Secondly, we also want to ensure that the private sectors, Road Transport Workers Union, any other sector, also allow come in to understand that the role of providing education to children is not only that of the education sector itself. All other people have a role to play, including the media, and we are utilizing that. Okay, Dr. Shehu, thank you so very much for joining us on this program this morning. Dr. Shehu is Kaduna State Commissioner of Education. It's our pleasure, sir. Thank you very much. Olushola Bankole, National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, FCT chapter, the chairman that is. We thank you so much for coming on this program this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mary Uga, Vice Principal, Academics, Federal Government Boys College, Abuja. It's our pleasure you've been with us.
Thank you very much.
And so many thanks to Ruth M1. You've been part of this show greatly, and we appreciate your contributions.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. And a very big thank you to you out there for having come along with us this morning. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We shall be back tomorrow with another package. Until then, I am Yusuf Dadabusman.
Stay safe and be well. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
Hello and welcome. It's time for another interesting package of
Everything Music.
Angelina, you dey cool my temperature. If you call, I go come deliver.
This is Tokyo Movies.
In times of old, the world was full of wonder.
Welcoming you to your weekend for today.
Alright, so come patrol it. It's time to use our voice.
Beyond 6 packs.
Bills.
Pay the bills, you pay my telephone bills.
Welcome to Gallery.
Me and my parties. London for what?
London for medicine.
Medicine for what?
Medicine for coffee.
Are you sickness?
To our illness. Welcome to Gist Zone.
Alright, my name is the Eselucien Wego One. Ona nyokoko nyonyo.